Right. Right. Welcome, guys. Welcome to Young Scholars. Woo! Who's ready for another fun meeting? All right. And today's topic. Oh, Anna's raising her hand. Someone has their hand raised. Oh, we're just pumped. All right. Let's get it. Today we're going to be talking about building confidence and speaking up. My name is Antonio Pizza, and I'm so glad to be here with you guys. Tonight, we are going to talk about something that matters in every part of life: confidence. Not the kind where you have to be the loudest person in the room like I am, but the kind that helps you trust your ideas, speak up when something matters, and grow into your own voice. Whether you're already comfortable speaking in front of others, or you still get nervous from time to time or raising your hand in class, this session is for you. We're really excited to share the honest stories, practical advice, and encouragement you can actually use. Let's get to it and get started by introducing myself and tonight's speakers. As mentioned, I'm Antonio Pizza, an NSHSS ambassador, and I'm the vice president. I'm a passionate about leadership and community involvement and helping people feel empowered to make a difference. I've been involved in political campaigns, school clubs, and service, and I care a lot about using voice to create a positive change. I'll be hosting tonight, and I'm excited to guide this conversation with two amazing student speakers who each have their own amazing story and perspective on confidence, leadership, and speaking up. Before we meet our speakers, I want to take a moment to ground us in tonight's theme. So, what does it really mean to find your voice? It means feeling comfortable sharing your ideas and opinions. It means speaking up even when you're nervous, and it means believing that what you say matters. Confidence matters because it helps you participate in class, in activities, and in everyday situations. It helps build leadership and communication skills, and it helps you advocate for yourself and for others. It supports success in school, friendships, and future careers. Tonight, you are going to hear real stories from students who didn't necessarily start out with confidence, but you'll hear practical ways to manage fear and self-doubt, tools that can help you build communication skills, and ideas for how students and parents can grow together. To make this interactive, let's start with a quick activity. I love for everyone to participate in this chat. And the first question is a little icebreaker we got planned for you guys. What does confidence mean to you? Go ahead and drop one word in the chat. Self-assured, that's a really good one. And there were 11 people on that chat. Let me hear some of these amazing words. Hannah, do you have a word for us?
Um, I was trying to think of something about what would be one word, but I failed. But a thing that's overall good for comments is not being afraid to mess up.
Right. We have self-love, we have friendships. Ooh, I like this. Confidence means believing in yourself and not caring about the bad things that other people think. That's a really good one. Kira, do you have one for us?
I would say strength.
Strength, yeah. All right. I love that. Thank you guys all for sharing. Here's something important to remember tonight. Everyone has a voice and deserves to be heard. Confidence is not something you're simply born with. It's something you build through action. And growth usually comes from trying and making mistakes, learning and trying again. Now, raise your hand if you ever have been nervous to speak in class. Yeah. Three participants. Wow, only three of you guys were nervous to be in class. I think some people are lying to us. Only two attendees. Okay, guys, I see how it is. But um, you're definitely not alone. Almost everyone, even those who wouldn't admit it, or afraid to share answers in class. Everyone has always felt shy or unsure or afraid of selling or saying the wrong thing at some point. One more chat question for you guys. Where do you want to feel more confident in? Maybe it's at school, in friendships, or during presentation in clubs or somewhere else. Let's put it in the chat, guys. Schools and sports. I'm an athlete, guys. I play chess. Love chess. Um, Presentations. All right. Performing in concerts. I used to play trumpet. I was really bad at it, but that didn't stop me. Public speaking. Did you know? I keep hearing the statistic about public speaking that people are more afraid of public speaking than death, which I don't know if it's true, but so you guys are definitely not alone in all of this. I know personally, I've probably been in your guys' shoes with sports or something. Kara, what do you have? Anything that you feel like you need to be more confident in?
I would say presentations, especially when I'm presenting in front of the class. I don't get as nervous presenting to people I don't know or adults, but when I'm presenting in front of my class, I'm always nervous.
What about you, Hannah?
I'm actually usually the opposite, that I don't have too much trouble anymore doing big presentations, say, like in front of the class, but I get more nervous to talking to people who are higher up than me, like adults or like my teachers.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think that, do you think practice was an influence in that?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And since I used to be like very, very incredibly shy, very afraid of doing presentations, but once you like put yourself out more, get more used to it, it gets a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely experienced that too. Um, let's move on to our next slide. Our first speaker tonight is Hannah Young, an NSHSS ambassador. Hannah Young is a junior in high school located in Maryland, attending Old Mill High in the IB program. She wants to pursue a career in broadcast journalism. Her hobbies include learning new languages, listening to music, and playing video games. That's pretty cool. I think that really connects with a lot of people. I think a lot of people love listening to music and playing video games. Me personally, I'm not a fan of new languages. I struggle with English alone, but that's good that you have that talent. Welcome, Hannah. And now let's meet our second speaker. Our second speaker is Kara Taylor, another NSHSS ambassador and the Coffee Chat support team member. And on top of that, she is the content creation support team member. Kara is a high school junior also at a technical school, taking college classes and working as an electrical apprentice. She volunteers for Project 341 as an AMC mentoring a group of nine ambassadors through a year of service projects through a nonprofit, Connect Me, a tutoring organization, and a local community organizations. She enjoys creating content to advocate for teens like herself with chronic medical conditions. When she is not working or volunteering or advocating, she is found working technical theater or dancing. That's really cool. Kara, we are so excited to hear your unique perspective tonight. Welcome. Now that we've met our speakers, let's move into our panel discussion. To start off, I'd love for each of you to briefly introduce yourself in your own words and share one word that describes your younger self when it came to confidence. Let's start off with Hannah.
Um, yeah, again, I am Hannah Young. As you're located in Maryland, I'm in the IB diploma program. Have been since elementary school, so that was also a common experience for me in middle school as well. But it's definitely in that program you're used to being in by yourself a bit more, so I got used to being definitely very shy in middle school.
Yeah, I think a lot of us go through that period where we're a little shy. Kara, do you have one word or a description of your younger self?
I would say that my younger self was very unsure. As I've gained confidence over the years, that doesn't mean I don't still have those moments. But as I go on and I take on more and more roles, I still find myself feeling the same unsure feelings I felt in middle school about what high school I was going to attend, who to sit with at lunch, how to talk to my teachers if I had a question or an idea.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people go through that and give you guys a future experience with college. You go through it all again. You think high school, you go to college and you go through it again, but you eventually all figure it out. All right, one more warm-up question. What is one thing you care deeply about that motivated you to start using your voice?
I've always been very passionate about being as involved as in my school life as I can, and helping other people at my school. So the more and more things that I got involved in, the more chances that I got to speak with other people and help with my shyness and stuff, and learn from those experiences how to speak up for myself.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people go through that and trying to find their voice and eventually finding it and seeing it as a tool. Kara, do you have something that some experience that motivated you to start using your voice?
I would say it's mostly like for me advocating for people like me and myself because when I went to high school, there was a lot of issues with the school about accommodations for kids with disabilities, and that really pushed me to start advocating not only for myself, but for people I met that had similar conditions or people I met that had different conditions because no one had a voice for us, and there was very few teachers who were willing to stick up, and that never seemed to be enough. So I think I got more confident knowing that I could really make a difference.
That's really cool, Kara. All right. Thank you guys so much for starting off with so honest answers. Let's talk a little more about what it really means to find your voice. What does finding your voice mean to you personally? Let's start with Kara on this one.
I would say that finding my voice to me personally, it's finding my voice in what I want to speak up about. There's so many things in the world that need to be spoken about, but frankly, I cannot speak about everything. So I need to find my voice not only to speak on things I have confidence in, but to speak of things that I care about. And to know how to do that and know how to present myself in that way was really important when it came to finding my voice.
Yeah, definitely. Hannah, do
Yeah,
you have
it's definitely always figuring out what you want to advocate about, what you want to contribute to the world, but of course that's not the only part of finding your voice. Finding your voice is also knowing who you are, what you care about, and how things personally are to you, and
Yeah,
how
definitely.
you want to approach things.
Yeah, I think it's important to look at how we approach things and what we say about it. Was there a moment when you guys realized your ideas mattered and they deserved to be heard? Was there a time where you said, I'm done being shy, and you went out there and just started speaking up? Let's start with Hannah on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I am still today very shy, but it's also a reason that I've started advocating for a lot more things since there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. So when like, there is something that you feel passionate about that's like, this needs to change, then that's when, you know, you should learn how to speak up for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Kara, was there a place where you found your voice?
I think that for me, feeling like my ideas mattered and I deserved to be heard actually happened quite recently because I always had the mindset that I was going to do it anyway. Like whether people wanted to listen or wanted to hear about it or were concerned with the issues, I was going to do it anyway. But a few weeks ago we were writing an essay for English class and I was talking to my teacher. It was like, well, you deserve all your ideas deserve to be heard, whether it's on this piece of paper or in all these other things. So I think that really pushed me not only to with my writing, but actually with my confidence because I don't think that anyone at this point is really going to say that my ideas don't matter.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. It's interesting that you mentioned that you found your voice recently. So we all find our voice at different times. So there's no set timeline for any of us. I actually really like this next question. How did you learn that leadership is not always about being the loudest person in the room? Let's start with Kiera on this one.
I think that I learned it when it came to like student government because we were like assigned positions like president, vice president, all that without knowing what we were going to be. And I had a smaller role, but I was able to slowly take on more and more. But I wasn't always the loudest person in the room. I listened to everybody. I did my job. I showed up, and then I slowly started pushing more and more, and the teachers started noticing. And I was also able to help my fellow students um, learn and grow alongside of me.
I think that's such an important point. Confident always doesn't always look loud. Hannah, do you have an example of that?
Yeah, it's actually also student government for me as well, because I'm currently the vice president for my student government, and I'm going to be running for the president at my school next year. And one thing that our sponsors made very apparent when we were first running, and obviously unsure if we would get the role or not, is that even if we don't get the role that we wanted, we could still contribute, uh, a big amount to our school. Even those small members who like aren't even officers, they can still contribute a big difference.
Yeah, sometimes it's the look of being steady and thoughtful and brave in quiet ways. Let's now talk about fear and self-doubt because that's something so many students experience. I personally experienced it myself. Let's go to the next slide. Can you share a time when you felt nervous to speak in front of others and what helped you get through it? Let's start with Kara on this one.
So this year I took over as stage manager for my school. Before I'd worked at ASM and stage managers at other theaters, but the first rehearsal we had, I had to speak and explain everything to everyone, and they were all sitting in a circle staring at me, and I completely forgot everything I needed to say. Like, I was like, even though I've known this and I've done this so many times. So, what really helped me was looking for the people who I knew in the audience, who I had known for years, and then I was like, okay, like, what if I was just talking to them at lunch or texting them all my ideas and everything that needed to happen? Like, ignore everything else and just focus on what you actually have to say. Because no matter how confident you get, there's going to be a group of people who you either don't want to let down or you don't know, and it's going to make you so nervous. But that doesn't mean that you don't actually know what you're talking about, and it doesn't mean you don't deserve to be there.
Yeah, that's definitely an important point to realize is that, sometimes people aren't going to want to listen to you, and that's not something to judge your character. It's just how people are. Hannah, do you have anything to also add on to that?
Yeah, I know it's like very common to like very often feel nervous, like even for myself, pretty much still today, just about every time that I'm talking to people, I get nervous, even a bit right now. But what really helps to get through it every time is just, that, I am here to talk about this, and, that's what I'm gonna talk about. That's what I'm here for. And don't need to be afraid of like what other people are gonna think of you, if they're gonna judge you, anything like that. You just gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you mentioned being nervous and the just doing this. What are some ways you cope with, your nerves before a presentation or a meeting or an important conversation, maybe with a coworker or your manager?
um It's pretty much the same thing as just have to, focus on what you're there to do. I mean, for a lot of people, like, even once you get through the thing, you're still nervous going through, and, like, even a lot of the time, even after it's over, it's just like nerves are a very common thing, and you just gotta push through. And
Yeah,
there's another
definitely.
thing is that I know something that helps a lot to calm my nerves is I often listen to music a lot. As you saw in my introduction, I really love listening to music. And I know a thing that helps with a very broad amount of people is that like breathing exercises always help because I know a lot of people like when they get nervous their breathing like speeds up, so it helps a lot to like regulate your breathing. It regulates your whole body.
Yeah, definitely. Kara, do you have anything to add on what ways you cope with your nerves?
Um, I think mine are very circumstantial. Like, I don't think I ever have a set plan, but I think that, like, if, say, like, I'm going into presentation, what helps for me is always, like, dressing and looking my best. Like, we just had a town meeting, like, mock exam for my, English course, and we were all supposed to, like, dress up as our characters. So I dressed up as a business advisor, and I, like, wore nice pants, a suit jacket, button up, and I think that really helped me to feel like I belonged and I was supposed to be there. And especially though the nerves were insane and I was shaking and I had my Chromebook up and I was reading my script and I still didn't feel like I had done it right. And like Hannah said, I carried those nerves with me after. It doesn't end before, it doesn't end during. A lot of times that nerves continue on until you really feel like you accomplished what you needed to, or you got through it, or some sort of result comes to be.
So I think it's important to note, I think you guys both touched on it, is that, your nerves don't go away. Every time you give a speech in front of someone, every time you go up to present in front of your entire class, you're going to be nervous no matter what. It's how you cope with it and how you manage your nerves and still being able to give a confident speech or presentation that really matters. All right, let's put a scenario on this. Let's say I'm a new student who is afraid of being judged or getting something wrong on raising my hand or something like that in class. What would you say to me? Let's start with Hannah.
Um, I mean, if you're afraid of getting it wrong, is just make sure that's important to know. Like even if you do get it wrong, you tried your best, and that's what's important. Like nobody's gonna judge you for that.
Yeah, definitely. Kara, do you have anything? I'm a new student. I'm like fourth grader.
So I've been a new student multiple times, and you always feel like you're going to say the wrong thing or you're going to be judged. But what comes to the most important is self on authenticity. Like even if you raise your hand and you get the answer wrong, to the people that actually are going to see you, even if it's at a young age, they're going to see you and they're going to be like, well, at least they tried. Like they tried to answer. If it comes to just being judged, like at lunch or at recess or something, you just have to be yourself because the people who you want to surround yourself with are going to like you for the real you rather than the show you're putting up. But I definitely understand that the confidence can be very hard. When I went to high school, one of my friends that was the year above me said, fake it till you make it. And I think that that registered with me because what I was being myself the whole time, but I was faking the confidence 100%.
Yeah, I think that's something important to note that when you're giving a speech or presentation, you can fake confidence. No one's gonna notice if you mess up. I gave a speech at my high school graduation, and I had a cold. I was loaded up on like cough medicine, and I gave a speech. I messed up on some sections of my speech, but when push came to shove, no one noticed because no one knew what was in my speech to begin with. So I think it's important to just go out there and be confident. So thank you guys so much for sharing all those amazing insights. I think hearing that even experienced student leaders such as yourself still get nervous sometimes is incredibly helpful. Now let's talk about how your confidence connected to leadership. You've both taken action in your communities in leadership roles. How did you first get started? Like all the way back. Let's start with Kiara on this one.
So, specifically, my leadership related to my community and different community organizations and nonprofits. When I was in eighth grade, I was chosen to be an ambassador for Project 351, which is a nonprofit in Massachusetts where there's one kid selected from every town, and we serve as a group multiple times a year. So, that was kind of when I first realized that I could make a difference in not only my town, but in the surrounding community. And I don't think that I would be where I was today if I hadn't been given that opportunity. And it's very full circle for me because when I was an ambassador, I had an AMC mentor me, and now I serve as an AMC. So I think that like getting me started not only put me here, but it gave me the courage to try so many other things and to speak up and be able to actually do more for my community.
I think that's something important to note there too, is taking the opportunities that are out there. That's how you advance your leadership skills, and a way you could find your voice is just seeing the opportunity and grabbing it and running with it. Hannah, you want to build upon that?
Yeah, it is definitely very important to take as many opportunities as you can because, again, for me, it really all ties back to my school involvement. I took, all the opportunities that I could, and that's helped me build my confidence. And, like, with how in my bio, hearing that, like, I want to be a broadcast journalist, it might sound a little bit unbelievable that someone, who confidently admits to be, extremely shy and nervous in front of people wants to be, like, on the face of the news. But it really goes all the way back to the opportunities because I've been doing my school's morning announcements since elementary school, like straight through to now in my junior year of high school. So it's really about like way back taking that opportunity and going with it, getting the chance to build that confidence.
Yeah, definitely. Was there a teacher or a mentor, a friend or family member who encouraged you to use your voice during those times?
Um, I mean, with high school, my parents definitely advocated for me to get involved in more stuff because when I first became a freshman in high school, I was like basically terrified. It's like very shy, like fresh out of middle school. Like it honestly is a very scary transition. And I basically didn't like join any clubs in my freshman year. But there's a lot of people that supported me, like my parents and a lot of the teachers that I had, pushed me to join more things and put myself out there.
Yeah. And sometimes we just need that gentle push to really get out there and start using our voice. Kira, was there someone who helped you find your voice and encouraged you to use it?
I had a mentor through Project 351, and I don't think she really encouraged me to find my voice, but she definitely encouraged me to use it. Like, I could speak up there, but I wouldn't speak up in my hometown. And I could speak up there, but I wouldn't speak up at school. And she encouraged me that if my ideas are valid there in such a large organization, they're going to be valid at home and they're going to be valid at school. So I think that really pushed me to like start doing more things. And like right after she pushed me to talk more about the mental health advocacy, I started a teen mental health group at my library, and I started bringing them up at school and how it's so important that we help our middle schoolers and our high schoolers and ensure that everyone feels like they're heard, not only in the sense of if they need someone to talk to, but in the sense if they're a leader as well.
Yeah, so what was one experience? So as you mentioned, what really helped you build your confidence as a leader? So you got into this organization. What was one thing that really helped you encourage to use your voice, or did it just come naturally?
I don't I think that it kind of like built up along the way and it took a very long time. But I think one experience was my freshman year reunion. So I had been in the organization for over a full year. I went in and I was just like doing my thing, all my jobs and stuff. And one of the ambassadors came over to me and asked me a question. And I immediately knew the answer and I knew how to help them, knew how to support them. I knew where they needed to be. And I think that really showed me that, like, I'm not just here on chance. Like, I'm here because I put in the work. And that also built my confidence to talk to other ambassadors, like if they needed anything or if I needed to help them in any way, that I was there and I also knew what I was doing and I would be able to fully help them.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just that one thing that can really start a chain reaction like that. Isn't that cool? Hannah, was there something like that that you experienced?
Yeah. I know I keep tying this back to student government, but obviously you don't have to join student government to become confident. This can be with any club or community, can really help you build your confidence. But I think it really was, with the first time I got elected into my student government, because I know with a lot of people who really like get shy and unsure of themselves, they often feel like, what if I do this and like, people judge me and like they're not gonna like me. But when I first put myself out to have such a huge role in the school, is to just seeing like there's so many people that like vote for me and like want to support me. You can really see once you put yourself out there like how many people are really there to support you.
Yeah. It's interesting that we don't really always realize all those people who are backing us and helping us there. And it just takes that couple of minutes of reflection to realize who was there to help us and who pushed us and who supported us through those times. How is speaking up helped you create change, even if it's in like a small way? Maybe it was standing up for a student or something like that. Do you have any experience with that, Kiara?
I have a lot of experience with that, but I'll go with one from today. So we were in math and my pump went off because I have an insulin pump, and then another student's went off, and my teacher started making comments about how they shouldn't be interrupting class. It's March, we've been in there for a while, but I didn't want to like go right to the teacher and explain what was going on. I took a second and then I was like, Mr. Q, can I just step out for a minute? And then I got myself together. I came back in and I was like, it's really not okay to be commenting about that stuff, especially bringing it to the whole class's attention. And I think that just today, that helped me not only make change in my own life, but in the other students that were in that class who have the same thing, and also be able to educate the teacher. And if you have students like that, it's better that we don't call such great attention to it.
It's definitely one way we can speak out. Hannah, do you have another way?
Yeah, I know a lot of speaking out definitely involves, with like people with disabilities and such, since it is such, a marginalized and like judged group. I personally know myself since I'm also one who has a chronic disability, so I've also, had to experience firsthand how people can treat people very differently for, such small reasons. So, you know, being able to find my voice and speak up for myself, helps me get that for other people as well.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think it really shows that leadership doesn't have to start huge. It can simply be standing up for one student in the class or helping one person. It can begin with one idea also, or one conversation, or one decision to step forward. Now, let's make this more practical for all those middle schoolers out there. Let's jump to the next slide, please. What are some habits or practices that helped you become more confident speakers? You guys are here speaking tonight, so I'm assuming you guys weren't always this confident.
No, definitely not always this confident. Um, I know I think that I don't do as often, like physically, but more mentally in my head. But things that definitely help with confidence going into big conversations and presentations is like going over the conversation in my head beforehand, so I know like what exactly I'm supposed to say.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely helps just practicing it and asking yourself, what would I do in that situation is also important. Kara, was there a time that, what helped you or what habits did you develop over time to really help you with that?
So I don't have very like consistent habits, but over the years, because of my time like working in technical theater, there's been many times where I've had to go on that stage unwillingly, and I was terrified. And now, like the first time I went up, I was like messing up every other word, like, and I've had to fill in for people during actual performances now. And I think that every time I do that, I get a little more comfortable because not only am I speaking to so many people, but being on stage makes seeming like talking on the phone with all of you a little less scary. So I think it's kind of like pushing the limits of what I can take, but also doing it consistently. It's not like I have to perform once a year. I mean, I've performed the past 7 weeks. Like it's just something that even though it's also something that I don't have to completely be myself in, so I can like kind of like I know like at the end of the day like that this isn't like necessarily everything's like such a big matter, but it's something that helps me learn my confidence and be more confident.
Yeah, definitely. Now let's put another scenario on this. Let's say I'm a middle schooler who wants to get more involved, but doesn't know where to begin. What would you recommend? Start with Hannah.
I mean, if you want to get involved, but a bit scared, don't know where to begin, I can definitely relate to that. Cause like, very first putting yourself out there into a very unfamiliar area can be like absolutely terrifying. So I know one thing that would probably definitely really help if you want to start getting into clubs and organizations and stuff in your school is to look at what clubs your friends are in because you already know them, you're already close to them, so that's your anchor person in that unfamiliar scary area that you can always go to.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Kara? Was there some time where you found yourself not sure where to begin and you jumped in somewhere?
I would say when I moved to my second middle school, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know like what to do or what clubs to take out up. So my sister was 2 years younger than me, but she was also joining student government. I was like, okay, I'll join student government. And then at the time I played in the orchestra at my old school. So I was like, okay, I'll join band. And just those two clubs allowed me to connect with so many other people. And then they were like, oh, hey, we have this club, this club, this club. And I started to join more and more because I knew people, like Hannah said, like knowing somebody helps so much because even if you have to talk to people you don't know or you have to speak with advisors you don't know, you know that one person that's always going to be there for you, that's always going to be in the corner, your corner, and is always going to be there every step of the way.
Yeah, it's important to know all the friends that support you. And it really builds a good safety net. What are some ways students can build confidence outside of public speaking? So when we're always thinking about confidence in your voice and finding your voice, we're always thinking of giving presentations or, giving speeches. But what are some ways outside of that in everyday life where students can build confidence?
I think it's really important to try and find your own way to practice self love because I know a lot of people with confidence it's not just public speaking, it's overall not having confidence in themselves. So not just looking to having other people believing you, but making sure that you believe in yourself first.
Yeah, definitely. And it's important to have faith in yourself, as you stated, because there's only one person who can really stop you from speaking up, and that's yourself. Um, Kara, do you have anything to build on that?
I completely agree with what Hannah said about self-love, and for me, it's also about self-expression. Like, one thing for me that really helps me find my confidence is fashion. If I'm not necessarily wearing what everyone else is wearing, it doesn't really matter to me because I feel good in what I'm wearing. Like, I'm a junior in high school and I have a Bluey lunchbox because it makes me happy, and I have that confidence. And people make comments, but it makes me happy and it makes me feel like myself. And sometimes it just makes my day a little brighter to know that I have that confidence to just do what makes me happy and not worry about about other people. That's not to say that sometimes I'm not insecure about what other people think and that comments don't get to me, but I think that expressing yourself, whether it be in what you're wearing or what you do or how you act, is really one of the most important ways to build confidence outside of public speaking.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm a college student. I still love Bluey, so no judge. Yeah. Um, how can students actually advocate for themselves at school, in clubs, or even with their friends? We always have those small issues in friend groups, and we see maybe one of our closest friends making fun of someone. How would you guys address those issues? Let's start with Kiera on this one.
I think that advocating for yourself within your friends is one of the most important parts because, especially when you have confidence with that, it can lead to school and in clubs. But there's a lot of times where you can have issues with people that are interpersonal, meaning like between people in groups, and that's not going to stop in middle school. It's definitely not going to stop in high school. It's not
Doesn't
going to
stop in
stop.
college either.
Yeah, it's not going to stop in the workplace. Those are always things you're going to have to deal with, whether it's with your friends or your coworkers. But you need to know one, boundaries and advocate for your boundaries. Like if you're not, say you're not comfortable with someone saying something about you, like you need to be clear about that. Or if you're not comfortable with someone touching you, you need to be clear about that and you need to advocate for that. Because a lot of times I find that in high school, like people are not critically thinking, like they don't mean to hurt your feelings, they don't mean to do anything wrong, but you need to advocate for yourself because a lot of times you can say that and they'll like correct, redirect, apologize, but you need to make sure that you're spreading your voice to them, even if it's your friends and you're like, I don't want to be mean to them. You need to stand up for yourself.
Yeah. So it's always important to have like that moral self-tour and always follow our own morals and not let those slip to the wayside. Hannah, do you have something to add on to that?
Yeah, it's definitely important. Like, if something ever makes you uncomfortable, like, even if it's your closest friend in the world and you're, like, scared to make conflict, like, you need to advocate for yourself because if you don't, like, that's how an even bigger conflict forms. Because if you don't advocate for yourself and say, like, hey, I don't like you doing this, then it becomes, like, a repetitive thing. It's eventually going to blow into an even bigger conflict. So it's always much better to, just advocate for yourself so it doesn't turn into anything you don't want it to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So let's take a second, put another scenario. Let's jump in a time machine, and you guys are going back to meet your younger selves. What is one piece of advice you would tell them to just help them in general? Let's start with Hannah on this one.
Um, don't be afraid to be like your 100% authentic self. Yeah, that's definitely the main thing.
Yeah,
It's like
definitely.
you need to do what makes you happy, and that's definitely a big thing of not worrying too much about what makes other people happy because your first priority is always yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Because there's going to be people who are going to pressure you, and sometimes you just need to stand up for what you believe in and not let those outside pressures really get to you, whether it's your close friends or people in a relationship or teachers or any of that. Kara, was there what's a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
I would say just plain and simply do it scared because it's always better to do something scared and do something terrified than not to do it at all because you don't know what other opportunities are going to come for that, but you also don't know how you're personally going to be developing from that one opportunity and doing that one thing. So as long as it's not scaring you too much that you feel like you won't be able to do it, I say do it scared.
Yeah, that's important to know. Yeah. That's really important. And it shows that confidence doesn't all grow at once. It grows through habits, practice, and support. Speaking of support, let's talk about the people and resources that make growth easier. What resources and programs or activities helped you guys grow your confidence the most? Let's start with Hannah.
Um, I mean, again, it's just always, the people who are around you. You might, you know, have as much of a support system as you think you do, but you just need to not be afraid to ask for help because, you know, like 9.9 times out of 10, like people will always be very, supportive and willing to help.
Yeah, definitely. Kara, do you have stuff to add on to that?
Would you mind just repeating the question? I'm sorry.
Of course, I can repeat the question. What resources, programs, or activities that helped you grow your confidence the most?
I would say definitely theater or being a class officer or a student government, stuff like that, like Hannah was mentioning before, because you don't realize how many of your classmates actually care about you and actually support you, or how many of your classmates who think that you're like very prominent in the school or you know everything or you're a good role model to look up to. Like there's times people stop me in the hall and ask me a question and I don't even know them. Like I've seen them maybe once or twice, but I think that getting involved in student government has made it so that people come to me. Like today someone came to ask me where to buy dance tickets and I actually knew the answer. But not only that, it's the fact that I can be someone that people can look up to and find someone that they need information from.
Yeah, that's important to note, that, confidence doesn't always happen and it happens over time, and we need to just go and do it, help another student out when we can. How has learning to speak up changed other parts of your life? Let's start with Kiara.
I think that learning how to speak up, unfortunately for my friends, have made me a bit louder of a person. I think that even with the people I trusted and that I was close with, I was always kind of reserved. But as I learned how to speak up in front of strangers or people I didn't know that well, I also became more vocal for in front of my friends because I thought that if other people cared about what I had to say, then my friends would care about the random things I had to say. And that's definitely remained true, although they can get a little annoyed about how loud I am.
Yeah, I definitely experience. People say I'm a little loud too. What does leadership look like for students who are quiet, thoughtful? But we're not all like extroverts. A lot of us are introverts. Um, Hannah, do you have something that you could really talk about that?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so not all of us are loud, outgoing people, as Kira said. What are some ways that like an introvert, someone who's quiet, can still have an impact?
I mean, the way I connect with a lot of my friends, I usually find myself connecting with other introverts because we have a lot of the same experiences being an introvert, since it's a lot more difficult than, being an extrovert, then you can just go up to anybody. So it's definitely something that you can easily connect with people over.
Okay. Yeah, that's really important to note that, we need to, recognize that we all have the impact to do stuff in the community, and it doesn't matter how loud our voice is. Those were such powerful takeaways. We're going to open up to Q&A now, and I'll also love for anyone in the audience to reflect on a small action they can all take next. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question about public speaking, confidence, leadership, or finding your voice, drop it in the chat and our ambassadors will answer it live. So exciting. Well, questions are coming in. Here's one for everyone to think about. What is one small action students can take this week to start building confidence in using their voice?
Sorry, I was reading the
No,
chat
you're
and I
good.
didn't have
Kara,
it
do you have
prepared, so no.
a way that we can or take actions even tomorrow or this week to help us build our confidence?
I would say talking to somebody that you don't know. Like this week at my school, it's kindness week, so I've made it a point that every day I go to well, today's Monday, but I'm going to continue this throughout the week of complimenting somebody I don't know and just starting that conversation because you never know the people you're going to meet. You never know if you have a lot of shared experiences, but you have to have that confidence to make the initial first step. And that confidence in everyday life, just talking to people you don't know, will carry on to when it comes to speaking because you'll become more and more confident talking to people that you have no idea who they are or what they're going to say or if they care to talk to you.
Yeah, definitely. So it's important to just take those first steps and get out there. Hannah, we have a good question that one of our attendees put into the chat. Who has inspired you to speak up slash advocate for yourself?
Um, yes, it's really myself. It's again, it's really important to believe in yourself because once you really like start being your authentic self, you can see that it doesn't really affect other people how worried how it would be, and you're able to just be yourself on your own. And there's always people that you can find around you that help you do that. Like, I know one of my closest friends that I've known since like early elementary school. Whenever I have an issue, I just go to her. We always talk it out, and she helps me, figure things out.
Yeah, definitely. Here's another question we just got. For parents listening tonight, what are some ways they can encourage their students to speak out and grow in confidence? Kiara, do you have any advice on that?
I would
Pretend to
say,
be a parent.
if you are trying to encourage your student to speak out, that it's important to encourage and not force, because when I was younger I was a lot more introverted, and especially when I started at my new school, my mom was like, "Oh, did you make any friends today?" I'm like, "No." Like, and that made me not want to talk to new people at school. But I think just encouraging, like, "Oh, I'm here if you want to talk about anything that happened at school. Oh, do you have any friends that you want to bring over? Oh, do you want to join this club?" Especially because a lot of schools are good about sending information about upcoming um like activities, opportunities home, so that you can be like to your student, like, "Oh, do you want to try this? I think it really sounds like something that would resonate with you," stuff like that. Just more encourage and not force.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely important of like no matter how hard you really want your child to get involved in things, it's important to just give slight encouragement, really not force things, because if you start forcing things and start asking about it like several times a day or every day, it's going to start having a negative connotation by it in their mind. It's going to make them not want to do anything.
yeah. Just a friendly member to our attendees. You can put your Q&A in the question and answer section. So if you want to go on over and stop putting those questions. I have another question that I found interesting. How do you guys handle mistakes when speaking in front of others? Let's say you're giving a big speech or a presentation, you mess up completely, or one of your slides goes missing. What would you guys do to handle that?
It's definitely important to remain confident, like we talked before. Because I know one thing I was thinking about sharing a couple of years ago. I used to do dance. Like I was in hip hop, tap, jazz, ballet, and a really big thing of that really made apparent like over all of the years that I was doing dance, that like if you ever make a mistake on stage, in the middle of a performance, like what you want to do is just pick up right where you were and keep going. Like the chances are, if you act, confident and not make it super obvious that I made a mistake, people might not even notice. But people are obviously gonna notice if you like sit down and stop dancing because you're sad that you made a mistake.
Yeah. So that's important to realize. Sometimes we do make mistakes. This is a good question that kind of reflects on that. Is when we make a mistake, how do we ignore negative comments that people say about us?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely really hard to ignore, and like for everybody, it's really like nobody can keep that off of their mind. There is obviously going to be, at least one person that's trying to bring you down. But, even though if you can't get that in off of your mind, it's important to remain confident in yourself so that you don't, fail because of the one person that's trying to bring you down, as opposed to, the possible like hundreds of people that you could have trying to support you.
Yeah, yeah. Here's another question we just got in. How did you feel after you started to gain confidence? Kara, do you have any insight on that?
I think for me, this might be a very confusing answer, but as I started to gain confidence in my actual speaking, I felt more unsure that I deserved the opportunities because as I got more confident, I got more and more opportunities, but I still felt unsure taking those, even though I was more confident in the actual speaking aspect and in things I did before, I still didn't feel sure that I deserved to be where I was. So I think it's definitely like conflicting emotions, especially like for me, it's helped to take the time to reflect about my experiences because that also helps me to think like, okay, I deserve to be there. I made an impact. I made a difference. I contributed type thing.
Yeah, definitely. Sophia, do you have anything to build on? Not Sophia. Hannah, do you have anything to add on to that?
I mean, things definitely start getting like a lot better once you realize that you started to get your confidence, since you start, feeling less terrified for things, even though you might still be, still know that, that like I can do this, it's not gonna kill me. Like
Yeah.
you are able to do great things.
Yeah, just realizing that, at the end of the day, does it really matter? Really has an impact on us. All right, last call for questions. Going once, going twice, going three times. No questions? All right, we got one more. Did you have any friends who already learned to advocate for yourself and you got inspired by? Kara, do you have anyone?
Sorry, I couldn't get my mic to unmute. I would say that when I was a freshman, I had a friend and he was a junior, and he really helped me to find my voice at the my current school because I saw how far he'd come and he would like be real with me. So he'd be like, my freshman year, I didn't talk to anybody. And I think being friends with upperclassmen helped me because not only my friend Casey, but also my other friends had been through experiences and they not only helped me with that, but they were able to connect me with people and teachers, and they were using their voice to make such a difference, I kind of was inspired to not only be like them, but to fill the roles that they had when they left.
Yeah, definitely. There's one more activity I want to do with you guys. I want everyone to share. Oh, wait, do we have another? We have one more question. Did your parents encourage you to speak up? Let's throw that one to Hannah.
Yeah, my parents definitely encourage you. Once I like finally started getting involved in things, to have positive reinforcement towards that, they definitely made sure to, praise me for that, to make sure, I was say things, like it's really good that you like involved in so many things, and that like you're able to help people, speak up for people, making sure that you have positive reinforcement towards everything, like once you get into things, so you have the feeling that, I am doing something good and like want to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. So we have another one. Oh, you guys really are questionative tonight. Did you feel any pressure going to a new school? How did you deal with it? So I think Kara mentioned going to a new school. How did you deal with that?
I think that I definitely think that there was a lot of pressure to make new friends, and especially because I didn't move too far away from my old friends, but it was far enough that I wasn't going to see them on the regular. So I think that there was that pressure, but I also think that because my younger sister was attending the same school, there was the pressure to show her that I could make it work and that she'd be able to make it work and that she would be just fine. But I also moved during the pandemic, so I think that pressure was even greater because everyone, um, was like they kind of knew each other. They had been so tight. They had talked to each other over the pandemic. And here I was, the first day they were going back, a new kid. It kind of felt like there was a lot of pressure, but I think that a lot of the teachers definitely helped me with that because they were showing me that I still mattered and that I was still like part of the community, even though I was new.
Yeah, that's really cool. So both of you guys mentioned being in student government. Our next question is, what do you guys do in student government? Now, I was in student government too, and then I was senator, so they just threw me a random role. I didn't really get to do much, but I was on the board technically. So, Hannah, do you want to share some insight um, on what you did
It
for student government?
was pretty much the same thing with how I've been with being vice president currently. My role is pretty much to fill in any role of like people who are absent. So, but that's obviously like not the only thing. I still have leadership roles in like planning school events and such. Helping with fundraisers, setting up events and like preparing for them.
Yeah. Kara, is there any insight on your student government position?
So I agree. It's kind of, it doesn't like, there's a lot of planning, especially if you're in certain roles. But at my high school, we have like, I'm a class officer, but then we have officers for every single club. So I'm also an officer in theater. And right now I'm vice president and acting treasurer for like months on end. But there are some times, depending on your leadership role, that you're going to have to fill in other people's jobs. So I think an important thing is like right at the beginning learning what everyone's required to do because then like if someone's like, oh, can you fill in for so and so, you know what you need to do and you're able to help move that team consistently. But for student government there's a lot of fundraising, a lot of planning, a lot of just communicating with teachers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Kara, you mentioned something interesting about all the things you're balancing. Our next question is related to that. Is balancing social life and academics hard?
It's definitely hard, especially now that I'm working every other week. There's some days I'm like, I don't think I've seen you in like 2 weeks. Like I saw my friend today, we looked at a calendar, I hadn't seen her in like 20 days. Like, and it's definitely like you have to make the time. Like this week, my only free day, really free hours, is Wednesday. So I'm gonna talk to one of my friends. I'm like, do you want to hang out on Wednesday? Like, especially because you want to put in the effort to all your academics and your future and stuff, but you also want to put in the effort to being a kid. And I think that's something I have struggled with. And this year, that's one of my goals. I'm making that effort to still be a kid and still go on like to do stuff that's really just for fun. So I think that it's hard to balance, but if you ever feel like you're not balancing it, taking the time to reflect or even talking to your parents about it can definitely help because they'll like there's been times where my mom's like, you need to go somewhere. Like you need to get out of the house, stop doing all this stuff. Like you need to go watch a movie, do something with your friends. And it has genuinely helped, especially in times where I'm getting close to being burnt out.
Yeah, Hannah, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, it can definitely get extremely difficult to balance things with academics, especially recently for me, because as you saw, like in the very beginning of this, I'm an IB diploma student, and everybody who knows what IB is knows that it's very, very rigorous of a program, since you're like schedule is like fully filled up with like 7 different IB courses that you always have to be dealing with, the mass amount of classwork and homework, IAs, and the EE. So, like, not to scare anybody out of IB, but it's definitely a thing where you have to make sure you occasionally, step back and reflect. Like, make sure you're getting everything done that you need to do and making sure also you have a life basically at the same time making sure you're not shutting out your friends or anything at all.
Yeah, and another question we just got in, and I think that kind of fits into it. Do you guys get enough sleep, or do you guys think that you kind of sacrifice sleep to handle other situations, whether it's hanging with friends or doing homework?
So I try to sleep because like my sleep schedule's a little off because I do work in the construction industry. So I wake up every morning at like 4:30, but I try to go to bed by 9 to kind of balance that out
Balance
a
it
little
off.
bit. But I think that there are some days like I'll get home from rehearsal at 8:45. Going to bed at 9 is not realistic when I have to fill out reg forms. I have to like organize this, check this spreadsheet. I don't know, do my homework. Like sometimes it really is not realistic. But I think that like finding the time and also prioritizing things. Like there's some days where I really want to like get everything done, but like that's not possible. Like I can't get that all done. But if something's not due till Thursday, maybe I do it on Wednesday. And as much as I don't suggest like procrastinating, there are some times where it's necessary to take care of yourself because if you don't get the best sleep the night before, you're not going to be your best self tomorrow. Like I have a quiz tomorrow. I can't stay up till like midnight doing homework knowing that I'm going into two quizzes tomorrow. But definitely, if you take on a lot, not having the best sleep schedule and losing sleep here and there is expected.
Yeah. Hannah, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of like mentioning IB a ton is like you can probably hear like every single IB student like ever that they very often lose sleep with the mass amount of coursework with it, but it's definitely always important to still prioritize your sleep. Like as important academics are, the thing that always needs to come first is your health. Definitely. So it's especially like weighing your priorities as well, because like I said, like if you have a test the next day, then you don't want to like stay up super late, so you're not going to be like falling asleep during your test.
Yeah, definitely. So I hate to cut off the question and answer period, but we are technically over time. So if you do have any questions, I would encourage you guys to email them with the parents present to the Young Scholars email, and we would be happy enough to forward them to our lovely guest speakers to answer those questions for you guys. Um, so, as we close, here are a few places confidence can grow. Whether it's through clubs and activities like debate and student government, theater, Model UN, robotics or service projects, through skill building programs like public speaking, workshops, leadership programs, writing, or storytelling, through mentors and role models, teachers, through daily confident habits like journaling, goal setting, or if it's through a safe practice space like a class discussion or group projects, the main message tonight is confidence is built. It grows through practice, support, and the encouragement to keep going. Thank you again to our speakers, and thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. A huge thank you to our speakers, Hannah and Kara, for sharing their experience and advice so openly. And thank you to all of our students and families for spending part of their evening with us. Before you go, please take a moment and fill out this feedback form using the QR code on your screen. Your feedback helps us to improve future events and create sessions that are even more helpful for students and families. Thank you again and have a wonderful evening. All right. Thank you guys. I'm gonna everyone get that screenshot in. Make sure you scan that QR code. I'm gonna end the meeting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you guys. Have a good night.